Grand Teton National Park in a day. Maybe you don't have the luxury of time and you want to make the most of your one day in one of the most spectacularly beautiful parks in North America. Well, first of all, you want to start before sunrise. Wake up in the dark and travel to a place called Schwabacker's Landing. And I want to warn you up front, you won't be the only animal moving around before sunrise in the dark. It's very common to see moose before sunrise because they walk down from the hills in the area to the Gros Ventre River and the Snake River. So just be aware of the possibility of wildlife on the road as you travel to Schwabacher Landing. Why do you want to start your day at Schwabacher Landing? Big fat hairy beavers. Beavers have created ponds in the area by damming up the water, and the water is remarkably still, usually. You can really capture some iconic images of the Teton mountain range reflected in those still waters of the beaver ponds at Schwabacker's Landing. Obviously, if you're there on a windy day, you're not going to get the still water and the reflections that you really want. As Mark Twain said, everybody talks about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. Not even the beavers can control the wind. And when you go down there at sunrise, you'll probably discover you aren't the only person to have this idea. It's a very popular spot for photographers any time of day, really. And sometimes you will be treated to wildlife viewings as well. As I mentioned, moose are active during that time of day. And occasionally you're going to get lucky and you'll see a moose frolicking around those beaver ponds with the mountains reflected in the water. And certainly you will start your day with some iconic photo opportunities. With the one caveat, of course, that you're there on a good weather day. It's not uncommon for the Teton mountain range to be obfuscated by cloud cover, especially up at the very high peaks. And also, occasionally you're going to have smoky days because smoke drifts in from California and other places, and that can really affect your visibility. But if you're there on a good weather, clear sky day, the views are spectacular. And after you've taken your fill of photos at Schwabacker's Landing, head immediately to Mormon Row.
You see that outhouse back there? No bidet.
So after watching the sunrise at Schwabacker's, I would recommend you drive back south, and in a matter of moments, you will be on Mormon Row, an area which contains many historic structures that were built by the first settlers in the area. The most iconic of these is known as the barn, the T.A. Moulton Barn. And when you see this barn, you will immediately understand why it is such a popular photo spot. The barn itself looks kind of like the Teton mountain range. It's really a beautiful work of art itself. And once again, you'll find this is a very popular photo spot. There will be many other photographers there. It's physically impossible to drive past that particular barn without stopping and taking photographs. And again, hopefully you're there on a good weather day. So now it's mid-morning, you've knocked out two iconic photo spots. I'm going to recommend that you drive over to the Gros Ventre Highway. First of all, if you're starting on Mormon Row, there are a couple of different ways you can get to Gros Ventre without going back out on the main highway. There is a direct, unpaved gravel road, which I will warn you is very rough, but it is the fastest route to get over to the Gros Ventre Road near Kelly, Wyoming. Or if you prefer to travel on asphalt, you head north and east and go through the small town of Kelly. You can do all this in about 10 or 15 minutes of driving. And you're probably going to spot some wildlife along this drive. And that's really why I'm recommending that you go check out the Gros-Ventre Highway that runs kind of parallel to the Gros-Ventre River. And yes, our beloved Gros-Ventre Campground is located along this road. Along Gros-Ventre Highway, you're likely to see pronghorn. You may see the occasional bison, and there's a decent chance you're going to see moose. How do you find a moose in this area? You look for the people. Usually, if there's a moose that is active in the Gros-Ventre River, there will be a crowd of people gathered to watch. You'll see a number of turnouts. Simply watch for crowd activity at these turnouts, and you can pretty quickly figure out if there's a moose active in the area. And of course, it is a very common daily occurrence for moose to be in that area because they come down every morning to enjoy the Gros-Ventre River. All right, lady, you've seen a moose. Now, if you don't see a moose in Gros-Ventre, don't linger too long and don't panic. You'll have opportunities later. Sometimes the moose cross the river and find a nice, cozy, private spot to lie during the afternoon. But right now, I want you to quickly move on from Gros-Ventre and head back north into the park. So at this point, it's mid to late morning. This is your opportunity to tackle the scenic 42-mile drive loop. Next couple hours are going to be spent on this scenic drive. And all along the highway, inside the park, and also on Highway 191, you're going to find turnouts. Some of them are more famous than others. For example, Oxbow Bend and the famous Snake River Overlook. But the point of this portion of the day is to really get your fill of these scenic turnouts and mountain views. And by the way, at this point, it's around lunchtime. I really recommend that you just pack some sandwiches and you enjoy a picnic lunch in a particularly scenic view somewhere along the scenic drive. After driving the 42-mile loop, you should be just about mountain viewed out. Why not get out of the car and take a hike? I always recommend that when you visit a national park, you seek out one of the hiking trails and get your buttocks area on it, because there's no better way to experience our national parks than by hiking. Since you have one day, I'm going to recommend what is probably the most popular hike in the park, and that is the Jenny Lake hike to Hidden Falls and possibly Inspiration Point. There are a couple of different ways to approach this hike. The faster, easier way is to include a boat ride. There's actually a little boat ferry that you can take to cross Jenny Lake. And yes, I would recommend that you go this route for a faster hike and also simply just to have the experience of the boat ride out there on beautiful Jenny Lake. The boat will take you across the lake. At that point, you get off and you hike a very short trail up to Hidden Falls. And if you want, you can go even further up to Inspiration Point and really enjoy some spectacular views looking out over Jenny Lake. But again, this is a very short, relatively easy hike. There is some incline involved, but it won't take up too much of your time. And I think you really enjoy the park by getting away from the parking lots and the turnouts for a little while and getting on an actual hiking trail. And by the way, if you don't want to take the ferry back across the lake, you could hike back around Jenny Lake. Just be aware that's going to take a lot longer, of course, than just riding the ferry boat back across. After you return from the hike and are driving out of the park, you have once again an excellent opportunity to view wildlife. It's the magic hour, and during this time of day, there will be more animal activity, including elk, moose, pronghorn, and yellow-bellied wookalar. Be very careful around those. They will bite. You started early, Where are you going to go to watch sunset? I'm going to recommend that you go to a place called Dornan's. Dornan's is one of the few restaurants that's available kind of inside the park. It's located pretty near the park entrance. Gas station with a view. They also have a supply store there, and yes, you can buy provisions there like sandwiches. There's a little grocery store, there's a little wine shop, and there's a restaurant which is mainly known for its pizza. I think their pizza is quite good. And they actually have a rooftop viewing area where you can get your pizza and a pitcher of cold adult beverages, sit up on that rooftop, watch the sunset, and take in a spectacular view of the Tetons. After sunset, if you have any energy remaining, I recommend you drive into the town of Jackson and take in some nightlife. There's usually some live music to be found and some dancing and a little bit of local Wyoming culture. So that's it, guys. Grand Teton National Park in a day. What do you think about these suggestions? Have you been to Grand Teton National Park? Do you think it's doable in a day? Would you do this itinerary I've suggested, or would you swap something out? I know that there are other hikes in Grand Teton National Park that could also be recommended. Yes, I'm looking at you, Taggart Lake, but I thought Jenny Lake would be a fun starter hike, especially since it includes the boat ride. Chime in, post a comment. If you're familiar with Grand Teton National Park, we would love to hear from you about how you would make the most of one day. That's it, guys. Yet another episode of Long, Long Honeymoon, the longest running honeymoon-themed RV show in the interwebs. See you next time. Stay tuned for our next video, reading War and Peace by Tolstoy in a day.